If you can give yourself these next few minutes, I want to walk you through an idea that holds the quiet power to reshape your life in a steady, almost invisible way. Not through force, not through pressure, but through something far simpler, giving your full attention back to yourself for the next 30 days. Most people move through life reacting to noise, demands, expectations, responsibilities, emotions, without ever stopping to look at the person carrying all of it. But something shifts when you pause everything for a moment, when you step back and decide to focus on your inner world with intention. 30 days may not sound like much, but it's enough time to rebuild direction, strengthen discipline, and clear the mental fog that's been slowing you down. It's enough time to get brutally honest about where your life is drifting and how far you've moved from the person you intended to be. If you approach the next month with clarity and commitment, you will start to notice small shifts that grow into new habits, new confidence, and eventually a new identity. This isn't about perfection. It isn't about forcing yourself into unrealistic routines. It's about creating space to meet yourself again, slowly, calmly, and with purpose. And maybe in the process, discovering that real transformation begins the moment you stop searching outside and start paying attention to the person within. Let's begin. 1. Audit your life with complete honesty. The first step in any real transformation isn't action, it's clarity. Before you try to change anything, you have to understand the life you are already living, and that requires a level of honesty most people avoid, not because they fear effort, but because they fear what they might uncover when they finally look closely. Take a moment and imagine examining your life the way a researcher examines data, not emotionally, not defensively, but with quiet curiosity. Look at how your days are shaped, what you give your energy to, the people who influence your mood, and the habits that create the results you see around you. This kind of reflection feels uncomfortable at first because it interrupts the stories you've been telling yourself, especially the ones that make you feel safe. But growth doesn't happen in comfort, it happens in awareness. Start with your time over the past week. Where did it go? How much of it was intentional and how much was reactive or automatic? Then examine your energy. Notice the activities that strengthen you and the ones that leave you mentally or emotionally drained. Look at your relationships. Some people bring clarity and elevation, others bring confusion and friction. Then study your habits, your mornings, your nights, how you handle stress, the things you do when no one is watching. These small behaviors build the architecture of your life far more than any dramatic decision ever will. As you reflect, resist the urge to criticize yourself. This isn't about shame, it's about discovery. The purpose of this audit isn't to point out what's wrong with you, but to illuminate what's possible for you. When you see your patterns clearly, you begin to understand why the same results keep repeating. You realize how much of your life has been controlled by autopilot instead of intention, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Write things down, not to create a dramatic list, but to give your thoughts shape. When thoughts stay unspoken, they blur together, but on paper, patterns become visible. You may notice your mornings lack structure and it affects your entire day, or that certain people consistently lower your emotional state, or that the clutter in your environment quietly drains your focus. These details matter because transformation isn't built on willpower, it's built on understanding. Allow this process to be slow. Sit with the truth long enough for it to settle. The goal is not to overwhelm yourself, but to create a clear picture of where you stand right now so the next 30 days have direction. Honesty is the foundation of discipline, clarity, and meaningful change. Once you commit to seeing your life without distortion, something inside you shifts. You stop living passively and start living deliberately. For these 30 days, let this be your starting point, a quiet promise to yourself that you will not look away from your reality. Because the moment you see your life with honesty is the moment you regain the power to transform it. 2. Define what success means for the next 30 days. If you want these next 30 days to create a real shift in your life, you must decide what success genuinely looks like within this short, powerful window. Most people walk around with vague ambitions, general hopes of being better, becoming more focused, more disciplined, more fulfilled. But those feelings don't guide you anywhere unless they are shaped into something specific. The mind works best when the target is clear and immediate. That's why a 30-day time frame is so effective. It forces your goals to become solid instead of distant ideas floating somewhere in the future. Take a moment and reflect on the season you're in right now. Not who you were last year, not who you might become in 5 years, but who you are today. Each chapter of life demands its own definition of success. Sometimes success means rebuilding your discipline. Sometimes it means protecting your mental health. Sometimes it's regaining focus, improving your physical strength, fixing your sleep, or restoring stability in your daily routines. Holding on to an outdated definition of success is one of the quietest forms of self-sabotage. When life evolves but your goals stay frozen, you end up chasing the wrong things. So begin by asking yourself one simple question: what would make the next 30 days meaningful? Maybe it's committing to a grounding morning routine. Maybe it's finishing a project you've avoided for far too long. Maybe it's rebuilding your confidence through small daily actions. Maybe it's restoring structure after a period of chaos. Whatever it is, let it be personal. Let it be something that truly matters to you, not something chosen because it sounds impressive or aligns with someone else's expectations. Once you identify it, define it clearly. Write it in a sentence or two, not to impress anyone, but to bring it out of your mind and into the real world. Clarity reduces resistance. Most people don't fail because they lack discipline. They fail because their minds don't know what to focus on. When your brain understands the target, your energy naturally flows toward it. Distractions lose their pull because you finally know where you're heading. And here's the quiet beauty of defining success for just 30 days. It reminds you that transformation doesn't require extreme pressure or huge ambition. It requires direction. Even slow progress becomes powerful when it's aimed at the right goal. You don't need to fix your entire life this month. You only need to choose the one shift that will create the strongest ripple across everything else. One clear aim can realign your habits, your mindset, your decisions, and the way you show up for yourself. As you define your version of success, let it feel honest and human. You're not trying to prove anything, you're trying to grow. Focus on what will truly elevate your life, even if it appears simple from the outside. The most profound changes often begin with subtle adjustments in your thinking and in the standards you set for your life. For the next 30 days, your definition of success becomes your compass. It tells you what to accept and what to decline. It filters your choices. It shapes your days. And when you honor it consistently, something shifts inside you. You stop moving blindly through routines and start moving with intention. And intention, even when quiet, is one of the strongest forces a person can carry. 3. Build a clear 30-day roadmap. Before real change becomes visible, it needs structure, something simple enough for your mind to trust and strong enough for your discipline to follow. A 30-day roadmap isn't meant to feel dramatic or overwhelming. It's meant to feel like a steady rhythm your life can move with. Most people fail at transformation because they create plans that look impressive on paper but collapse under the pressure of daily reality. What you need instead is a roadmap that fits who you are today while guiding you toward who you want to become. Start by imagining the next 30 days as a single path, not a collection of isolated efforts. Every day connects to the next, and every action you take, even the smallest one, builds momentum for the day that follows. When you design your roadmap, think in terms of simple, repeatable actions rather than ambitious, unsustainable tasks. Your brain doesn't resist consistency, it resists overwhelm. So the goal isn't to create a plan that excites you on day one, but a plan you can still follow on day 23. When your energy is low and life becomes loud. Start with the one outcome you defined in the previous step. Then break it into supporting actions. Actions, clear enough that you can execute them without hesitation. If your goal is to rebuild focus, your roadmap might include a distraction-free morning, a 20-minute block of deep work, and a simple evening review of your day. If your goal is to strengthen discipline, it might include a fixed wake-up time, a commitment to start tasks immediately, and a promise to limit negotiation with your emotions. Whatever you choose, make sure the actions feel realistic yet meaningful, steps that stretch you but don't break you. As you build this roadmap, pay attention to the patterns that have defeated you before. Where did your past plans fall apart? Was it unclear priorities, lack of structure, emotional resistance, or taking on too many commitments at once? Use these observations to shape your design. A successful roadmap isn't built from motivation. It's built from understanding your tendencies and building a system that works with your psychology instead of against it. Once your actions are defined, give each one a specific place in your day. Routines fail when they float without anchors. Decide when things will happen, not just what will happen. Morning rituals belong in the morning. Deep work goes at the time of day when you naturally feel strongest. Reflection belongs at night. When time and action merge, habits become easier to build, and when habits become easier, change becomes inevitable. Write your roadmap somewhere you can see it every day, your notebook, your wall, your phone. What matters is that you return to it often. Familiarity creates commitment. Every time you see your plan, you reinforce the identity of someone who follows through. This repetition strengthens your resolve far more than motivation ever could. And as you move through the month, expect resistance. Expect days when you feel tempted to pause or cut corners. That doesn't mean failure. It means growth. A roadmap is not designed to remove struggle. It's designed to guide you through it. When you feel yourself drifting, return to the path you created. Remind yourself that the goal is not perfection, it's presence. The roadmap exists to keep you centered, not to punish you. What makes a 30-day roadmap so powerful is that it creates a contained challenge, long enough to matter, short enough to sustain your intensity. It becomes a quiet pact between you and your future self. For the next month, I will move with intention. When you commit to that, even gently, your actions begin aligning with your potential. And once that alignment begins, change is no longer a question of possibility. It becomes a question of inevitability. 4. Let go of what drains you. If you truly want the next 30 days to matter, you must create space for change. And that requires letting go, quietly, intentionally, and without unnecessary drama. Most people try to build a new life while still clinging to the very things that exhaust them, distract them, or keep them emotionally stuck. You cannot transform while carrying weight that does not belong to your future. Letting go is not a sign of weakness. It is a decision rooted in strength, a recalibration of your inner world so growth can become possible again. Begin by noticing the small drains, the subtle leaks in your energy that you've tolerated far too long, the grudges you hold, the unresolved emotions that echo in the back of your mind. The older versions of yourself you continue to compare everything to. These things don't scream, they whisper, they linger, they cling. And slowly, they shape the way you think, the way you move, and the way you show up for yourself. When your mind is crowded with unfinished stories, creating a new one becomes incredibly difficult. But letting go doesn't mean erasing your past. It means releasing your attachment to it. You don't have to forget. You don't have to pretend it didn't matter. You just have to decide that it will no longer hold authority over who you're becoming. This decision often arrives quietly, in a single moment of clarity, when you finally recognize that holding on doesn't protect you anymore, it limits you. Think about the habits that drain you, the distractions that steal hours from your day, the emotional patterns that pull you into cycles you've already outgrown. For these 30 days, choose to create distance, not permanently, not dramatically, just enough to breathe again. Sometimes letting go is not a grand event, it's a gentle shift. It's catching yourself mid-habit, pausing and choosing something different. Over time, those small choices reshape your reality, and then look at the people in your life, not with blame or judgment, but with truth. Some people bring clarity, others bring noise. Some strengthen you, others reinforce your weaknesses. As you enter a month of reconnecting with yourself, you need emotional space. That doesn't mean cutting everyone out. It means becoming aware of who affects you and how. It means setting boundaries that protect your peace without apologizing for it. Letting go also applies to identities, the stories you tell yourself about who you are. Maybe you've been holding on to an outdated version of yourself, the one who gives too much, the one who avoids change, the one who stays silent, the one who underestimates their own strength. These inner labels influence your behavior far more than you realize. For these next 30 days, allow yourself to step away from those old narratives. Let your actions, not your past, define who you are. When you begin this process, you'll notice something shift. Your mind becomes lighter, your decisions become clearer, your attention becomes more available. Letting go creates a kind of inner quiet, a spaciousness that becomes the perfect ground for discipline, clarity, and new growth. Without that space, even the strongest plans struggle to take root. So as you enter this new chapter, make a gentle commitment to release what no longer fits. You're not abandoning your past, you're choosing your future. You're choosing focus over noise, strength over stagnation, movement over attachment. And when you consistently choose that, even softly, you begin to sense a different version of yourself emerging, lighter, calmer, and far more capable of rising in the direction you've always wanted to go. 5. Create personal rules you don't break. There comes a moment in every meaningful transformation when you realize motivation alone will not carry you. Motivation rises, fades, returns, and disappears. It's unstable. What creates stability, what builds real inner strength, is the set of rules you quietly commit to and refuse to break. These rules are not restrictions, they are anchors. They protect your focus, your time, your energy, and your identity as you move through the next 30 days. And the interesting thing is that the clearer these rules become, the more freedom you experience. Personal rules are different from goals. Goals describe what you want. Rules define who you're willing to become. They act as the invisible structure underneath your behavior, shaping your choices even when you're tired, stressed, or overwhelmed. The right rules simplify your life because they eliminate negotiation. You no longer ask yourself whether you should do something you've already committed to. This removes the internal friction that drains most people before they even start. Begin with the basics: how you wake up, how you start your mornings, how you end your nights. A rule might be as simple as no phone during the first 30 minutes of the day. Not because it sounds impressive, but because it shields your mind from external noise before your internal world is grounded. Another rule could be, never skip the one task that moves my life forward today. Even if the day falls apart, even if everything feels chaotic, you complete that single, meaningful action. Over time, this small rule transforms your sense of control. Then shift your focus to your environment. If clutter makes you feel mentally scattered, create a rule about maintaining order, 5 minutes every night to reset your space. If certain digital habits weaken your focus, design rules around screen time. If particular conversations drain your emotional energy, set boundaries, not as walls, but as filters that protect your clarity. These personal rules don't require explanation or approval. They exist because they support the version of yourself you are choosing to grow into. And then there are the deeper rules, the ones that define your character. Things like, I finish what I start unless it no longer aligns with my values. Or, I do not respond emotionally when I'm tired. Or even, I speak to myself with the same respect I offer others. These types of rules shape your relationship with your inner world, and that relationship determines the quality of your life far more than any external accomplishment ever will. As you craft your rules for these 30 days, keep them simple. Complexity invites failure. Clarity invites consistency. You don't need 20 rules, you need a few that genuinely matter. And once you choose them, treat them as non-negotiable. Breaking a rule isn't a disaster, but honoring it even on difficult days builds a quiet, powerful strength inside you. It reminds you that you can trust yourself, that your promises hold weight, that you're capable of discipline, even when your emotions argue against it. There will be moments when your mind tries to negotiate with you. Moments when comfort feels more appealing than commitment. Moments when the old version of you whispers that skipping a rule just once won't matter. But every time you honor your personal laws, you reinforce the identity you're building. And every time you break them, you breathe life back into the version of yourself that kept waiting for the right time to change. You're not building these rules for the world. You're building them for yourself, for the version of you that will emerge over the next 30 days. They are a promise, a framework, a quiet declaration that your life deserves intention and seriousness. When you begin living by your own standards instead of bending to the expectations around you, something shifts internally. You feel centered, steady, capable. You move through your days with direction that isn't dependent on mood or motivation. This is the real strength of personal rules. They turn discipline from a chase into an identity. They turn integrity into a daily practice. And once that alignment begins settling into your life, everything around you starts rising with it. 6. Create a morning system that sets your tone. Real transformation rarely begins halfway through the day or during random waves of motivation. It begins the second you open your eyes. The first hour after waking is the foundation for everything that will follow. Yet this is the most overlooked part of most people's lives. They wake and instantly step into noise, into distraction, into urgency that isn't theirs. They enter the world before they enter themselves. And this single habit influences the entire day more than they notice. A morning system isn't about tricks or strict routines. It's about intentionally building a steady sequence that prepares your mindset, your energy, and your focus for the person you're becoming. It's about stepping into the day with direction instead of emotional reactivity. The goal isn't total control, it's to create a rhythm, a grounding, a mental tone that supports you through whatever comes your way. Start with something simple, awareness. Before touching your phone, before engaging with anyone, give yourself a moment to arrive. Sit with your breathing, sit with the quiet. Feel the shift between sleep and waking. This gentle pause does something subtle but powerful. It regulates your nervous system and gives you mental clarity before the world starts demanding your attention. When you start your day with presence, everything that comes after feels steadier. Then introduce a bit of movement. It doesn't need to be a workout. Even a short stretch or a few minutes of walking sends a clear message to your body: I'm preparing myself. Movement wakes up the mind, sharpens focus, and energizes your state. It's one of the quickest ways to shift from passive mode to intentional action. These small physical rituals create momentum long before external pressure reaches you. Hydration also matters. Water before caffeine, clarity before stimulation. This simple choice supports your brain and sets a physical standard for how you treat yourself throughout the day. And once your body is awake, take a moment to look over your plan, your guide for these 30 days, not with stress or urgency, but as a reminder of the direction you've chosen. When your mornings reconnect you to your priorities, those priorities stay with you everywhere you go. A solid morning system also includes emotional grounding. Ask yourself, what version of me do I choose to be today? Calm, disciplined, focused, kind, intentional. Naming your desired state creates a type of inner gravity. Your behavior starts aligning with that identity all day long. Both research and experience show this. When you define your identity early, your actions follow naturally. And never forget, this system is yours. It doesn't need to impress anyone. It doesn't need to be complicated or long. In fact, the more simple it is, the more likely you are to live by it every day. A few minutes of silence, a few minutes of movement, a moment of intention, a quick review of your plan, that's all you truly need. What matters isn't the complexity, it's the consistency. When you repeat this simple sequence for 30 days, it evolves into more than a routine. It becomes a part of who you are. There will be mornings when you feel drained, unmotivated, or weighed down. Mornings when the system feels pointless. But those are exactly the moments when it becomes the most important. A morning system isn't designed for your strongest days. It's built for your weakest ones. It's a framework you can fall back on when your emotions refuse to cooperate. It's a way of reminding yourself through action that even if the day feels heavy, you still start with clarity, intention, and self-respect. By the end of the 30 days, you'll notice something quiet but deeply significant. Your mornings stop feeling random. Your attention sharpens. Your discipline becomes sturdier. You react less and choose more. And slowly, without pushing or forcing anything, your life begins shaping itself around the identity you've been practicing each day. This is the silent strength of a morning system. It transforms not only your schedule, but your sense of self. And once the identity shifts, everything else in your life begins to follow with it. 7. Turn your vision into visible action. Knowing what you want is one thing. Living in a way that brings it closer is something entirely different. Most people keep their goals floating loosely in their minds, vague ideas with no structure, no clarity, no weight. For these next 30 days, you need something much more concrete. You need your vision to exist in the real world, not just in your thoughts. When your goals become visible, they stop functioning as dreams and start acting like instructions. Start by writing down exactly what you want these 30 days to produce for you. Not long paragraphs, not emotional essays, just clear lines that point directly to your direction. When a goal is written, it becomes a reference point. When it stays in your head, it becomes mental clutter. The mind handles external structure far better than internal noise. Writing immediately gives your goals form and boundaries, but the real impact comes when you break that vision into daily actions, specific, measurable steps that hold you accountable. This is where most people stumble. They set intentions but never turn them into behaviors. They say they want discipline. They say they want clarity. They say they want growth. But unless those desires correspond to daily actions, nothing shifts. So take your written vision and convert it into tasks. If your goal is sharper focus, include a daily deep work session. If it's better health, commit to a daily walk and consistent meals. If it's emotional balance, include reflection, breath work, or personal boundaries. Once these actions are defined, place them somewhere you'll see every single day. Your wall, your desk, your mirror, your lock screen. The location isn't important. The visibility is. When your goals greet you physically, the option of forgetting disappears. You stop giving yourself the easy exit that leads to avoidance. You stay tied to the bigger picture, even when motivation drops. Think of this as creating your own action board, a quiet, steady reminder of who you're working to become. When your environment reflects your intentions, your behavior begins adjusting naturally. We underestimate how deeply our surroundings shape our choices. A 30-day transformation doesn't demand more willpower. It requires better alignment. And your environment is one of the strongest tools you have for this. As you follow this system daily, something interesting begins to shift. The distance between what you want and what you do starts shrinking. You stop feeling like someone waiting for change, and start feeling like someone who builds it. This shift in identity, subtle but undeniable, becomes one of the most powerful parts of your transformation. Your confidence begins growing not from results, but from your commitment and consistency. Every time you complete a task that aligns with your vision, you strengthen the belief that you can depend on yourself. And when you inevitably face resistance, don't misinterpret it as failure. Resistance simply signals that you're operating outside familiar patterns. It means you're stretching beyond the habits you've lived in for years. When your mind urges you to skip a step or postpone a task, that is precisely the moment when following through matters most. These are the turning points that determine who you become once the 30 days are finished. By turning your vision into visible action, you build a bridge between intention and reality. You give your day direction, your decisions purpose, and your goals a physical presence in your environment. And when your behavior starts reflecting your vision, even if imperfectly, your life begins shifting in subtle but undeniable ways. This is where transformation starts, not from sudden inspiration but from alignment, not from dramatic actions but from daily visible proof that you're choosing yourself. Over the next month, let every action you take serve as evidence of the life you're constructing, one quiet choice at a time. 8. Journal daily to understand your inner world. If these next 30 days are meant to reshape your life, you need a way to track the shifts happening within you, because real change never begins externally. It starts quietly in the thoughts you replay, the stories you cling to, the emotions you avoid, and the subconscious patterns you fall into. Journaling becomes the tool that brings all of this into the light, not as a rigid discipline, but as a place where you can meet yourself truthfully, without judgment, without pressure, without trying to impress anyone. When you write, the noise of your mind slows. Thoughts that once felt tangled begin separating. Emotions that felt too heavy begin to lift. Confusion becomes organized, and clarity becomes direction. Most people never pause to observe their inner world. They simply react to it. They feel frustrated but never question the cause. They feel stuck but never explore the roots. They repeat behaviors but never investigate the pattern. Journaling interrupts this unconscious cycle. It shifts you from reacting to understanding. Begin with something simple. At the start or end of your day, open your notebook and ask yourself 3 quiet questions. What did I do today? What did I feel today? What do I need tomorrow? These small questions alone can alter your awareness. They teach you to review your behavior, recognize your emotions, and mentally prepare yourself for the next step. Over weeks, your journal becomes a record of your evolution, showing you your progress and revealing the areas that still need work. Some days you may fill a page, other days you may write only a few sentences. What matters is the consistency, daily. Writing is not about creating something perfect, it's about creating something real. It's about forming a deeper connection with your inner voice, the same voice that directs your decisions, shapes your discipline, and either strengthens or weakens your ability to focus on your growth. When you journal, you give that inner voice a space to speak clearly. This practice also uncovers your patterns. As the days pass, you'll start noticing repeated triggers, familiar excuses that appear at predictable moments, and emotional dips that follow similar situations. These patterns are significant. They show you where your transformation is being tested and point directly to the areas that need deeper understanding. Without journaling, these insights remain hidden. With journaling, they become visible. Then there are the small wins, the subtle improvements that often go unnoticed. A sharper focus in the morning, a boundary you held more firmly, a calmer response in a stressful situation. Journaling captures these moments so they are not forgotten. Progress, especially in its early stages, is quiet. It whispers before it shouts. If you fail to record it, your mind can convince you that nothing is happening. But the journal records the truth. Change is already underway. As the 30 days progress, your journal also becomes a tool for emotional stability. On challenging days, you can glance back and remember the clarity you once had. You can see the resilience you've displayed. You can trace the promise you made to yourself and the actions you've already taken. It becomes far harder to give up when you can witness tangible proof of your commitment. Ultimately, journaling becomes a compass. It aligns your inner world with your daily actions. It provides direction when you feel lost and confidence when you feel uncertain. It teaches you that discipline is not merely a behavior, it is a form of understanding, and understanding comes through reflection. By the end of these 30 days, your journal won't just be a record, it will be a mirror reflecting your growth, a grounding tool, and a reminder of your potential. It will show the contrast between who you were when you started and who you are becoming now. And when you review it, you'll realize an important truth. You didn't just write about change, you lived it. 9. Master consistency, not perfection. When people imagine transformation, they often picture dramatic breakthroughs, days overflowing with intensity, motivation, and flawless execution. But real change rarely happens in those moments. It occurs in the quieter ones, the ordinary days when inspiration feels absent, when the routine drags and progress seems almost invisible. Consistency, not perfection, is what reshapes your identity over the next 30 days. Recognizing this truth frees you from the pressure that traps so many people. Perfection is fragile. It crumbles the moment life becomes unpredictable, and life always becomes unpredictable. A sleepless night, an unplanned responsibility, a surge of self-doubt, a long day at work, these things can easily shatter perfection. Consistency, on the other hand, is resilient. It adapts. It endures interruptions. It works with the energy you have, not the energy you wish you had. Consistency calls on you to act today, even if the effort is small, even if it's imperfect. This principle alone is powerful enough to carry you through all 30 days. Think of consistency as a quiet promise to yourself. Not a pledge to be flawless, but a commitment to remain engaged, to show up in whatever form you can, and to keep moving even when the pace is slow. Embracing this mindset diminishes the power of resistance. You stop fighting against your emotions and instead work alongside them, understanding that discipline isn't about feeling ready, it's about choosing to continue despite how you feel. Start by lowering the psychological pressure you place on the process. Instead of thinking, I must do everything perfectly today, reframe it as, I just need to stay connected to my goal. This shift transforms the process. It removes shame, reduces overwhelm, and makes the next step manageable. When you commit to consistency, even your imperfect days contribute meaningfully to your overall progress. They maintain the rhythm, preserve the momentum, and keep your identity aligned with your intentions. This is the point where the real psychological shift occurs. Every time you follow through on the workout, the journaling, the reflection, or the daily routine, you reinforce a fundamental belief: I am someone who follows through. That belief is far more important than any individual action you complete. Identity shapes behavior, behavior shapes results, results build confidence, and confidence strengthens identity. This cycle becomes the engine that carries you through the 30 days. Naturally, resistance will emerge. There will be days when you question why you're doing this at all, when motivation is low, when you feel scattered or slow. These are the moments where most people give up. Not because they are incapable of continuing, but because they believe that a lapse in consistency destroys everything. Understand this: nothing ruins your progress unless you let it. A missed day is not failure, it is simply a moment. What matters is what you do immediately after. Recognize a fundamental truth: the most successful people rarely have perfect routines. They have adaptable routines. They have learned how to adjust without abandoning themselves. They understand that remaining lightly connected to the path is more important than walking it flawlessly. This mindset eliminates the all-or-nothing thinking that sabotages so many attempts at change. To make consistency easier, build small rituals around your commitments. A. Cue to signal the start, a simple environment that supports your effort, and a familiar routine that removes unnecessary decisions. When your actions become predictable, your mind relaxes. You no longer treat every task as a battle, you see it as part of your daily rhythm. The more automatic your habits become, the less resistance they provoke. Track your consistency, not your perfection. Mark the days you showed up, even if your effort wasn't perfect. A visible streak of commitment generates quiet pride and a momentum that is difficult to interrupt. Humans naturally protect what they invest in. When you can see your progress in front of you, the desire to continue grows organically. By the end of these 30 days, you won't recall every flawless moment. You will remember the rhythm, the daily choices, the nights you persisted, the mornings you showed up despite lacking motivation. Consistency doesn't just alter what you do, it reshapes who you believe yourself to be. And when your identity shifts, transformation becomes inevitable. This is the power of consistency. It is not loud, not dramatic, not perfect. It is simply steady. And steady is what builds a life you can trust. 10. Remove distractions at their source. If you want the next 30 days to fundamentally reshape your life, you must treat your attention as sacred. For most people, the greatest obstacle to progress is not a lack of discipline, intelligence, or ambition. It is distraction. Not the obvious large-scale interruptions, but the subtle daily interruptions that quietly drain mental energy and fracture your focus. Transformation becomes nearly impossible when your mind is constantly tugged in every direction except the one that matters most. The reason distractions are so effective is that they rarely feel harmful in the moment. A few minutes on your phone, idle scrolling, are meaningless. Conversation, a task that belongs to someone else. All of these moments seem insignificant, yet they accumulate, and before you realize it, your entire day has been shaped by things that do not serve your growth. During a 30-day transformation, you cannot allow external noise to dictate your internal direction. Your attention is your most valuable resource, and you must protect it accordingly. The mistake most people make is trying to fight distractions with willpower. They tell themselves to resist, to push through, to stay focused. But willpower is finite, especially when you are tired, stressed, or emotionally drained. The most effective approach is not resistance, it is removal. Instead of confronting distractions in the moment, remove them before they appear. Build an environment where focus is the default, not the struggle. Begin with your physical surroundings. Evaluate the spaces where you spend the most time. Are they supporting your focus or hindering it? A cluttered desk fosters a cluttered mind. A chaotic room breeds chaotic thoughts. Take a few moments to simplify your space. Remove what is unnecessary. Organize what you keep. Create a physical environment that mirrors the clarity you are trying to cultivate mentally. Then turn your attention to your digital world. This is where most distractions live. Audit your apps, your notifications, the accounts you follow, the voices you allow into your mind. Ask yourself honestly, does this contribute to the person I am building over the next 30 days? If the answer is no, mute it, hide it, limit it, or remove it entirely. Silence notifications that pull you away from your priorities. Delete apps that encourage endless scrolling. Reduce the noise until only what truly matters remains. And don't forget about your emotional environment. Some distractions arrive in the form of people, familiar, well-meaning, comfortable, but misaligned with your path. You don't need to cut anyone off. You simply need to set boundaries that protect your focus. Let those around you know that you are entering a period of intentional growth. You would be surprised at how much clarity and peace can come from communicating your priorities calmly and clearly. As you implement these adjustments, a subtle shift begins. You start to notice how much mental space you reclaim by removing even just a few distractions. Your thinking becomes clearer, your decisions sharper, You feel more present, more aware of where your energy is going, and more capable of directing it purposefully. Distractions lose their power when the environment no longer nurtures them. And this is where deeper transformation begins. By removing distractions at the root, you free yourself from the constant struggle against temptation. You no longer rely on fleeting motivation to stay on track. You rely on design. You realize that discipline is not something you manufacture, it is something you protect. You construct conditions that make success easier, not harder. By the end of these 30 days, you will look back and notice how different your mind feels. The noise that once dominated your attention has quieted. The pull toward meaningless habits weakens. And the space that opens up allows you to pour your focus into what truly matters: your goals, your growth, your inner stability, and your identity. Removing distractions doesn't just give you more time, it gives you more of yourself, more presence, more control, and more of the person you are striving to become. 11. Shift into a new identity. Every authentic transformation begins not by changing habits, but by changing the source of those habits, your identity. The way you perceive yourself dictates how you act. For the next 30 days to meaningfully reshape your life, you must step into a new version of yourself, not someday in the future, but now, through the small, deliberate decisions you make each day. Identity is the quiet engine behind discipline, consistency, and growth. When it shifts, everything else follows naturally. Consider for a moment the identity you have been living from. Not the one you speak about, but the one revealed through your actions. Perhaps you've been operating as someone who tries but hesitates, someone who begins but does not finish, someone who desires change but doubts their own capability. These identities are not failures, they are patterns created through repetition, and just as they were formed, they can be replaced through repetition. To shift your identity, you don't need forceful affirmations or dramatic declarations. What you need is alignment, actions that reflect the person you want to become. If you wish to be disciplined, discipline isn't something you chase, it's something you practice through small, consistent daily choices. If you want confidence, you cultivate it through acts that prove you can rely on yourself. Identity is earned, not imagined. Visualize the person you want to be at the end of these 30 days. Someone more focused, healthier, calmer, someone who keeps their commitments and no longer negotiates with weakness. Hold that image gently, not as pressure, but as direction. When you wake in the morning, ask quietly, what would that version of me do today? Then take an action, any action that aligns with that answer. The transformation doesn't occur in grand gestures, it occurs in small moments. When you complete the task instead of postponing it, when you follow your morning system even on a fatigued day, when you resist distractions that could derail you, when you honor the rules you've set, each of these choices is a vote for your new identity. Over time, the votes accumulate until the old version of yourself no longer feels like home. Be patient with yourself throughout this process. Identity shifts are subtle and build quietly beneath the surface. Some days you'll feel the change, other days you won't. The absence of visible progress does not mean that nothing is happening. You are rewiring the way your mind understands itself, which is deeper than any single habit. Stick with it. Trust the process. Every aligned action reinforces the foundation you are constructing. And remember, identity is not about perfection. It's about direction. The person you are becoming matters far more than the mistakes you make along the way. You don't need to erase your past self, you simply need to outgrow it. Bit by bit, decision by decision, you move closer to a version of yourself that feels grounded, capable, intentional, and proud. By the conclusion of these 30 days, the transformation will be evident, not only in what you do, but in how you think, how you respond, and how you carry yourself. You will feel more aligned with the life you are building, more responsible for your own trajectory, and more connected to the identity you are actively shaping. And that identity, quiet, resilient, disciplined, becomes the foundation for every transformation that follows. This is the true power of focusing on yourself. You are not merely changing habits, you are changing the person creating those habits. And once that person evolves, everything else naturally rises to meet them. As you reach the conclusion of these 30 days, a subtle but profound shift begins to take shape within you. Not a sudden dramatic transformation, not an explosive breakthrough, but a quiet, steady certainty. A recognition that the person you've been practicing to become is real, that every small, imperfect step mattered far more than you realized, that the discipline you cultivated, the clarity you gained, and the identity you stepped into are not temporary states, they are the foundations of a new way of living. You may not immediately notice the change. True growth rarely announces itself. It arrives softly, through calmer, more deliberate decisions, through stronger boundaries, and through a deeper, unshakable trust in yourself. It shows up in the way you handle resistance, the way you respond to distractions, and the way you return to your path even after difficult days. These seemingly small shifts are not small at all. They are the framework, the architecture of your new life. What matters now is that you do not treat these 30 days as a single event, separate from your ongoing life. True transformation happens when you carry these lessons forward, when these practices move beyond experiments and become part of your being. The identity you have been constructing is no longer fragile. It is not a phase. It is not a temporary burst of motivation. It is a foundation, something to expand, strengthen, and rely upon. You have proven something important, not to anyone else, but to yourself. You've proven that consistency is attainable, that discipline is not defined by perfection but by presence, that focus is not a gift but a choice, and that when you dedicate attention to your inner world, everything around you begins to align in ways you could never have anticipated. Perhaps the most meaningful discovery of all is this: you do not need permission to change. You do not need the perfect moment. You do not need to wait for motivation to arrive. All you truly needed was a single intentional decision, a quiet decision to focus on yourself and see what unfolds. And now you know what unfolds. Now you have lived it. So when the next chapter begins, do not rush. Do not force anything. Simply continue. Continue the clarity. Continue the discipline. Continue embracing the identity you have stepped into. Let these 30 days mark the beginning of a life lived with intention, where you trust your ability to follow through and where each day is met with a sense of grounded possibility. The transformation you have cultivated here is not meant to end. It is meant to evolve. It is meant to guide you toward the version of yourself that has been waiting quietly in the background, patient, capable, strong, and ready. And perhaps that is the essence of growth, the courage to listen to that version of yourself and the commitment to become them, one deliberate, intentional day at a time. And now, as you stand at the threshold of what you've built, it's time to recognize something profound. Transformation is not a destination, it is a journey that never truly ends. What you've created in these 30 days is not a temporary change or a fleeting moment of motivation. It is a foundation, a new framework for how you live, think, and act. You've proven that focus can overcome distraction, that discipline can persist even when your emotions resist, and that identity can shift quietly, steadily, one decision at a time. The person you've become in these 30 days is not someone imagined. They are real, and their presence will ripple through every part of your life. Look closely at the habits you've formed, the routines you've honored, the boundaries you've set, and the actions you've taken. Each one is a declaration that your life is worth shaping, that your attention is valuable, that your growth is non-negotiable. These are not small victories, they are the pillars of your future. Every day you've committed to showing up, even imperfectly, has been a vote for yourself. Every time you've returned to your path after distraction, resistance, or doubt, you've strengthened the bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. And that bridge does not end here. It extends forward, carrying the momentum you've built into the months, years, and decades to come. Now, take a moment to reflect. Feel the weight of the transformation in your mind, in your body, in the way you approach your day. Sense the clarity that has replaced confusion, the calm that has replaced chaos, the confidence that has replaced hesitation. You've proven something essential, that change does not require perfection, that growth is not instantaneous, and that the smallest consistent actions, repeated with intention, are more powerful than grand gestures. You've experienced the quiet power of alignment between thought, action, and identity, and that alignment is what makes all progress inevitable. The final lesson of these 30 days is simple but profound. You don't need to chase motivation. You don't need external validation. You don't need permission or a perfect moment. What you need is presence, commitment, and the courage to keep showing up for yourself. Every day you make this choice, you become stronger, clearer, and more capable of navigating life with purpose. You've laid the foundation for a life guided by intention, anchored in discipline, and elevated by a deep understanding of yourself. As this chapter closes, carry these truths forward. Let your mornings, your rules, your identity, your focus, and your discipline be your compass for everything. That comes next. Keep journaling, keep reflecting, keep removing distractions, keep honoring the small victories. Let the identity you've stepped into become the person who shapes your future, not the person who reacts to it. And remember, growth is never final. It is an ongoing conversation with yourself, a lifelong practice, a continuous commitment to evolve, to rise, and to become the person you've always quietly known you could be. So step forward with quiet confidence. Step forward with purpose. Step forward knowing that you have proven to yourself more than anyone else could that transformation is not only possible, it is inevitable when you dedicate yourself fully. And as you continue, you will discover that the person you've become in these 30 days is just the beginning. The first chapter in a life where you move with clarity, act with intention, and rise to the potential that has always been waiting quietly within you. This is the power of commitment. This is the power of focus. This is the power of becoming the truest version of yourself, one intentional day at a time.